Welcome back to the Mature Male Podcast. I'm your host, Wes, a practicing psychotherapist helping men mature through timeless wisdom and practical guidance. Today's guest is Traver Boehm. Traver is the founder of Man Uncivilized movement, a TEDx speaker, and author of the books Today I Rise and Man Uncivilized. After experiencing the loss of his wife through divorce and their child through miscarriage in the same year, he embarked on a transformative journey that led him to place acupuncture needles in homeless HIV patients, hold the hands of dying men while volunteering in hospice, and spend a month alone in the pitch black room in Guatemala. Traver, welcome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
So you spent a month completely alone in the dark in Guatemala. What was that intense experience like, and how did it reshape your understanding of pain as a teacher?
Oh boy. We'll start with a softball.
Yeah, no problem.
Right?
You got it.
I actually just wrote another book on this. It's called 28 Days in Darkness.
Okay.
And there was so much that happened, Wes. Like, just imagine for a minute, literally being in a very, very small, uncomfortable, unfurnished room, all concrete and no light. And by small, I mean, if I put my arms out wide and I'm under 6 feet, I could almost touch side to side. And it was a circular dome, almost like a Pac-Man, if you remember the image of Pac-Man. And
Yes.
the mouth part was like a toilet, a sink, and a shower that sprayed down onto the toilet. And above that was a sleeping area, which was horribly uncomfortable. So the main lesson that it taught me about pain is that I can be with it. Because if you think about this experience, there's no people, there's no books, there's no internet, there's no music, there's no window to look out. Like, it is complete darkness. There's not even the visual of my body to keep me occupied. So it was, okay, whatever comes up, I have to sit with. It's not going to go anywhere. Like, I had the same mental video clip run for like 3-4 days in a row, just on loop, every 30 seconds, on loop, on loop, on loop. And I would try to avoid it. I would do push-ups. So whatever it was, I had to actually just sit there and go, okay, this is my reality right now. I could leave at any time. That's something to say to people, but I wanted to really get it in my system, in my body, that I can sit through or sit with anything. Not sit through, because sit through is the idea that at some point this will end. Sitting with is like, hey, if this is reality forever, that's okay. And literally getting broken over and over and over by the boredom, by the suffering, by the lack of humanity, by the lack of touch, by the whole experience, that it really reorganized me in a very different way, and also introduced me to the entity. And I want to use this word consciously, the entity of darkness. That, like, I don't view darkness now as just the absolute absence of light. I view it as something that's in the room when when light leaves. Like, darkness filled the space. There was something in the book that was hard to describe. I try to say, like, if you've ever been, like 50 feet underwater, where water will get in every possible crevice, like it'll go up your nose, it'll go in your armpits, it'll go in the cracks of your body, that I felt darkness like infusing itself in all of those spaces and teaching me. First, like kicking the shit out of me, but then teaching me. Like, there were so many lessons that would come just from sitting there by myself, or meditating, or hallucinating, or whatever it was in the moment. So it really, it reorganized me to a point that I'm now going to go back in for another longer dose, because it was that impactful.
I'm curious. I don't know many people who would, one, even think that this is something you would do outside of being tortured as a prisoner of war. So I'm curious, what led you to this? How'd you find it? And it sounds like you reached a point within the experience where you broke through. There was some retaliation, resistance, and it seemed like there was a moment where you finally, let's say, came to terms with it. I'm curious if you could speak to those two things.
Sure. What got me into it, man, it's such a wild story. I went to my very first men's workshop, and it was a small group thing with a man named Robert Masters. If you've ever read To Be a Man, he put this small group together in a yurt in Santa Barbara. And I lived in Santa Barbara at the time. So I was like, holy shit, this guy's coming to my town. and went to the workshop. And there was another man there named Kellen, who at the time, this is such a crazy story, he had 6 months left to live. I think he had terminal cirrhosis of the liver. And then oddly enough, he's still alive. This was a decade ago. He went to Mexico and got a experimental treatment, and it's a whole nother story. But I was sitting with him at lunch and explained to him that I was on this year-long project called the Year to Live Project, where essentially I took 12 months after the divorce, the miscarriage, business sale, like all of this trauma and heartache. And I was going to live the year as if it was my last, like full on. Like, hey, I'm going to pretend as best to my ability that I'm going to die December 31st at 12:01 a.m. or whatever the time is. And he heard that and he goes, if you really want to understand death without dying, you have to do a dark retreat. And I was like, awesome. What on God's green earth is a dark retreat? I've never even heard these two words put together in the same sentence. And he went on to explain it to me and said that he'd done something like, God, Wes, it was like 180 days total, like not at the same time, but 49 days, 30 days, 20 days, etc. And he just talked about the profundity of it and the profundity of the simplicity. Because if you think about that experience, it is adrenalizing and overwhelming and scary. And there's all these feelings, right? Like when the door shut behind me and I heard the key turn, I was like, oh my God, I'm in it. I'm doing it. And then within a day or two, is like, there's literally nothing to do. Shit. And that's the hard kind of juxtaposition that I hope people can grapple with or hold in each hand. That like in my right hand, there's this incredible intensity of the experience. I can't see, have to touch everything to walk around. Eating is far more difficult. Going to the bathroom is far more difficult. Taking a shower is terrifying because I grew up on horror movies and I was sure something was in there trying to murder me every time I took a shower. And there's nothing to do all day long, 24/7, So it's like this weird kind of balance back and forth. And so to answer your question about like surrendering to it, let's say, for like the first week, I was just bored. I would love to tell your audience, like, and then I met Jesus and I was super enlightened and I learned to levitate. And I was like, I did push-ups, I did squats, I shadow boxed, I meditated. And I remember literally sitting there thinking, I'm just going to waste a month of my life. Like, this was such a dumb idea. I don't know what this dude was talking about. Like, nothing's happening. I had heard that on day 10 or 11, your pineal gland does something and you may start hallucinating. And I was like, cool, I hope that happens. Nothing really happened. But on the 8th night, I had a dream that I was walking down a beach with my ex-wife holding the hand of the child we had lost. And so I woke up like, covered in sweat and panting and just in a terrible, terrible place. And I couldn't get that out of my mind. It just kept playing over and over and over again throughout the night. And then early the next morning, I was told that the room would be relatively silent because it was sequestered on this ashram property. Like there wouldn't be, like, I wouldn't hear people talking outside, etc. But the ashram was having construction, and construction in Guatemala means bamboo. And someone had a grinder, right? So starting at like, I don't know what time it was, 7 a.m, I hear like, and it doesn't stop, right? Like I can't put music on. I don't have earplugs, and it goes and goes and goes, and it just never ends. This, like, imagine someone scraping their nails down a chalkboard for like 4.5 hours the night after you've had a dream about the woman who left you and the child that you lost. That's when I fell off the cliff. And that's when I say the actual initiation of the darkness started. Because before then, I could have been in my own living room, thinking thoughts and doing push-ups. But that's when, like, if you've ever done plant medicine or something like that, like, in the beginning, like, I don't know if it's working. And then the next thing like the toilet's talking to you and breathing and whatnot. It was like that. So like the 8th day, I then fell apart. I just lost my shit. I started sobbing and grieving and screaming. And like people came in the room to see me that weren't really there. People's spirits came in. It was fucking freaky from that point on.
It reminds me of an experience I had. I lived in this monastery for 6 weeks in almost complete silence. A little different because I had light.
Where was that?
It was outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I was in between jobs. I was at this point where I knew I lost my dad when I was 11 and
Mm,
I hadn't dealt with that trauma. And similarly, someone told me, "Hey, you can go stay at this place and live. It's incredibly challenging, but it'll be life changing." And at the time you think, oh, it's an adventure. Of course, that
yeah.
sense of challenge rises in you. Yeah, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to tell people about it. That's really what was going through my mind.
Yeah.
I'm really humble though, so don't ask me. So I go, and similarly, I remember I'm not cooking. I have no phone. I had 5 pairs of
Mm,
clothes. I'm
mhm.
all everything is within a 5 foot radius of me. Super simple bed. And I just remember that first week was a straight tantrum. And it was just
Mm,
retaliating against every attachment I had of
mm,
busyness, of being seen, of being able to do a bunch of things, all these impulses and all these dynamics and identities that I had in my life. And I
yeah.
remember meeting with my spiritual director and this monk, and I just told him, I can't do this. Like, similar to
Mm,
you, you're kind of like, I'm here. I know I have to finish it, but I
yeah.
really don't know how, because the honeymoon stage is over and you're coming to terms with the void. And I
Right.
remember he told me this story about Sufi Muslims. He said, Sufi Muslims have this concept about fire. They say almost everyone sees fire.
Mm,
Very few people feel fire, but almost
mm,
no one is willing to be consumed by it. And he
yeah.
talked about that in relation to silence. And
Mm,
he said,
mm.
Wes, you have seen silence, you have felt it at times, but now you must become consumed. And I
Woo.
remember similarly, I was about a week in and
Yeah.
I'm sitting an hour in deep meditation. And I get taken back to the moment I told my dad goodbye when he
Oh,
was passing away.
fuck. Yeah.
And similarly with you, with that trauma just coming out of your subconscious through that dream,
Yeah.
I I realized I knew informationally about it, but
Mm,
experientially, I had never actually come to terms with it. And in that moment, same with you, something just realigned. And I
mm,
finally just accepted it, saw it for what it was, for what it wasn't,
mhm,
appreciated it, loved it, but
mm.
really just revisited it without being overwhelmed. And the rest of the 5 weeks were just still had challenge,
Sure.
but that felt like the rite of passage, almost like a crossover, similar to you. I'm curious, after you got through that, having that dream, listening to the bamboo grinder for all that time and crying, how would you describe that experience of the grieving and the coming to terms with the trauma? I think especially men don't talk about what it's like for us in particular to experience some of those things, like how to actually experience the pain, some common ways it may be expressed. Obviously, it was unique to you, so I don't want to put you in a box, but if you're open to sharing, I'd love to hear.
Yeah. I would have told you, Wes, 3 weeks before going into the dark that like I've grieved that. It
Mm,
wasn't like I was your standard stoic human. When my ex-wife left, I cried for weeks. And
mm,
this was a year later. And same thing over the miscarriage. I had to work through some of that with the guys at Robert Masters at that workshop. I remember him telling me I had to like speak to the child while men held me down. And I was like, I
mm,
won't fucking do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And then tried to do it and was like sobbing through it. So I would have told you, like, oh, I've worked through all of this. And yet there was so much more. Like
mm,
I've spent almost a full week just crying on the floor. And people listen to this and be like, wow, what a wuss. But I had 40 years, I think, of stuff that I had
mm,
dealt with like a standard American male, which
mm,
was get upset at the time, probably get angry at the time, shove down whatever the grief was, and move on. Or drink my way through it, smoke my way through it, fuck my way through it, just do something else to not feel it and suppress it and suppress it and suppress it.
mm,
So I don't know how I dealt with it. It was bigger than me. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like for the first time, I probably somatically and cerebrally admitted, oh my God, grief is bigger than I am. I can't, because in there I couldn't hop on Facebook and make a post and get the dopamine hit from people liking it. I couldn't publish an article on a website and have people comment like, "Oh my God, this helped me so much." I couldn't go kiss somebody or have sex with somebody. I didn't drink at the time anymore. But like there was no other thing to make the grief smaller
Mm.
or no other lid to push it down and hold it. And so it just all came out, and it was a terrible week, right? Like I hated it. I just cried. I was like, God, am I ever going to stop crying? I remember thinking that like the human tear duct is fascinating. What are you doing? Like, how many tears do you have in here?
Right.
And is my body going to be okay with this like
Mm.
retching and sobbing and flexing and heaving? And it was awful. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want to have your listeners be like, wow, that sounds really great. It was cathartic. Like I think I had some intuitive sense of like, get this out here, man. Like,
Yeah.
don't take this back to the outside world. Like, don't take this grief. Cleanse your stomach. It's like if you have
Yeah.
food poisoning, like puke it all up. Don't leave any for 6 months from now or a year from now, or like a seedling of it that will grow and grow. And of course, things happened when I came out and things have happened since that have added more grief to my pile. But just being with it, and that's a big thing. I hope you guys listening to this get this. Like there's two parts I think to grieving. And I know you're a therapist, so please chime in with professional views on this. Is one, being with the grief, just acknowledging and allowing it to flow and allowing it to come up and allowing it to come out. And then secondarily, being with myself as I grieved and not punishing myself or shaming myself or calling myself a wuss or telling myself it shouldn't be happening or I should be stronger, like literally holding myself in my own grief, which if you're in a pitch black room by yourself, you have to do. Outside of a pitch black room, you have to do to some extent. And hopefully you have some other people or one other person, professionally or otherwise, who can hold you in that grief as well. But I think for so many men, or I'd say most men, we don't know how to, one, be in grief. And two, we certainly don't know how to hold ourselves through it.
Mm.
And so those were two massive lessons or experiential lessons that I got. Born in pain, seared with like a iron in pain. You know, again, I don't want to have people listening to this and be like, wow, that sounded lovely. It was not lovely by any means. It's taken me almost a decade, over a decade, to decide to go back in. So it was that hard to deal with.
You're naming something really important I hadn't thought about, which is we often tell people to love themselves, but isolated from loving the thing that painfully prevents them from loving themselves.
Mm.
Because I think we think about it in this paradoxical manner. Well, it can't be both, right? Because if it's
Right.
painful and it's hurtful, it's traumatic, it couldn't possibly be positive. So
Right.
why should I accept that? Because if I accept it, then that would say X, Y, and Z about me. So if I almost reflect the trauma in how I treat myself, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But
100%.
actually,
Right.
what you're naming, it seems like, is first is just coming to terms with it happening, and how many of us just struggle to call things how they are. We love to say, yeah, I'm a man. I like to say this is like this, and and so certain about things. But yet it's weird that the things that happen to us, like trauma, that are so mysterious, they're unexplainable in a way. You mentioned having trouble writing about that experience in your book, right? Some things just, they are what they are. We have so much trouble being certain about the unknown or about what can't be proven factually or informationally. But I think what you're naming in that is, it also is an opportunity for you to love yourself by how you treat yourself in the midst of experiencing that pain. And I'm just
A thousand
wondering,
percent.
why do you think guys are so hard on themselves in that space? What messages were you taught, or what beliefs did you have that felt like you needed to do that up until that point in the darkness?
I imagine that there was overt and covert. There was explicit and, and not explicit. I feel
Yeah.
like what's the baseball movie with Tom Hanks? There's no crying in
A
baseball.
League of Their
A
Own or
League of
no?
Their Own.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
remember as a kid taking judo, and some other kid got like thrown on my leg, and I was crying, and my judo instructor grabbed me and was like, "There's no crying in judo," and like swallow, like literally being like, and then having to train. Or watching Rambo and Commando as a kid, growing up in the 80s, or just how many times as a young boy, guys in the neighborhood would I'd watch them like tear somebody apart, or I'd get punched for being sensitive, or and this is just normal guy stuff, especially
Mm,
at a time when emotional intelligence in the male collective wasn't what it is now, right? There was no Instagram, there was no mental health, or there was very little mental health conversation. But like, I didn't grow up specifically in an environment that was anti-male or men shouldn't be weak, but I did grow up in an environment where we were taught to be hyper independent.
mm,
And I can remember times of like crying as a kid and then being ignored specifically, so that I would learn to toughen up, right? So I learned to like handle things on my own. And so I think that's also, I mean, there are men who have specific trauma around like, I cried. And even just this sentence, like, I'll give you something to cry about. I grew up in that generation. I'm 49 years old. Like, that was, we were told that constantly.
mm.
Oh, you're in pain. Well, then if you express that pain, you will be physically beaten, or you will be physically punished. So there's specifics, but I then also think just the male species, like, we do this to each other. We've heard about women doing it to us. I think mothers do it to sons, fathers do it to sons. Like, it comes from both sides. Societally, that's just what we get. I work with a great therapist. I don't know if you know Dewey Freeman, and he's a savant older guy. And he was telling me that he just read a study that I think by age two, and I'm going to screw up the specifics here, but it's something like by age two, either two or three, young boys are getting physically touched 50% less than young girls. And so I imagine a lot of that touch would come at a time of soothing. And so it may not be that I watched Rambo and saw that like men need to toughen up, but it was that as a child or a baby, like if I cried, I was kind of ignored. I know I was ignored as a toddler when I cried, like specifically. And so I think a lot of it, Wes, is baked into that system, right? And it's these like little messages now of like, don't do that, don't do that, men don't do that, don't be a baby, don't be a wimp, don't be a wuss, right? Like, it's just so, it's so there. And especially in the 80s when it was like a national sport to make fun of each other. I grew up on the East
Yeah.
Coast too, where it was
Yes.
like weakness was not okay. I grew up playing sports where, weakness is just you're picking on each other. It's locker room talk. But I imagine it gets internalized pretty deeply.
I appreciate that internal external messaging receival. And I think you're right. And that's really profound about the touch. I mean, I even remember it was considered gay or weird to hug your guy friends, right? I mean,
Right.
and there's something so physically disarming about touch. If you do it the right way, it's so healing and it regrounds us. I have a friend, he's a neuroscientist. He says, you just take your hand and put it on the chest, you will
Mhm.
re-regulate almost instantly. And when you don't
Right.
get those simple touches, first of all, for yourself, you don't even feel worthy enough to give yourself that love. But second, when there's no one externally to do that, the
Right.
hug, the touch, the embrace, those are physical signs of an internal relational dynamic. So then if you're not touched, you think, I'm alone. I have to carry this burden by myself. I'm not worthy enough to connect with other people. Why
Yeah.
even try? Because it's not going to make sense, or it's not going to make me better, outcome based. And that's powerful. You mentioned growing up in the 80s. I know you have written about how you grew up in the suburbs and what you have
Yeah.
called a civilized environment,
Yeah.
caged in by the yard of the months, I'm sure. You did that before embracing what you now term uncivilized. I'm wondering
Yeah.
if you could walk us through, what does it truly mean to be an uncivilized man in today's world? And how do you approach men who are still operating primarily in that civilized paradigm that you grew up in?
Yeah, and I don't make any bones about it. I grew up in the suburbs. I went to private school. I grew up in a good portion of my life in Japan, in Tokyo.
Oh, cool.
So I got to see a lot of different ways people live. I got to travel a ton as a young person and traveled a ton for my adult life. And here's what I tell people. I know this is a biblical quote and it's a little bit meta, but I want men to believe that they are in this world, but not of it. Right. So think about that, to be in this world, but not of it. I used to hear Wayne Dyer talk about that, if you know him as a speaker. And really, what I'm asking guys to do is question things to the point that they make sense to you. Right. So I remember early on, Wes, like promoting Uncivilized, and people were like, but you have internet. And I'm like, I know. And I drive a car and I have like a roof. I'm not living in the woods promoting this idea. But the idea is like, are you authentic to your heart, to your soul, to what you want to do in this world, to your dharma? Are you literally following your personal dharma, not society's, not the patterning, not the conditioning that you've been fed and you unconsciously follow because you haven't come through an initiation or anything that makes you stop and question, is this the life that I actually want to live? Right? I live in Boulder, Colorado. This is not like a rough and tumble place. There's a lot of people doing extreme sports, but I split my time between Costa Rica and Boulder, Colorado. And I go to Costa Rica to be more in an quote uncivilized place. And I say that not to shit on Costa Rica. I say it because I go get in the ocean. I surf down there. I live in the dirt more down there. I can feel the jungle down there. I'm closer to nature. My spiritual practice is my primary concern other than surfing down there. Here in Colorado, I'm back in civilization. I do podcast interviews. I write books. I do business. I post a lot on social media. I make money, right? So to answer your question, it's truly, truly, truly like, are you living a life that's raw? Like, are you in touch with your edge? Like, are you have something, you and I, every guy has something that they don't want to lean into or they're afraid to lean into. To me, uncivilized means, yeah, maybe not every day. You can take some days off and chill and have a great life. But like, what is there that's so apparent in your shadow or this, the predator, as Francis Weller calls it, that you're unwilling to rub up against? Rubbing up against that is uncivilized. So we say raw, real, relational, right? Real, like, are you honest about your life? Are you just fucking honest? If you are, let me see your internet history. Let me see your checking account. Let me see your credit card statement. Like, where is your time and energy going? Because this life is going to go so damn fast. So don't tell me that you're in love with your wife and you have a great relationship on social media and then you're cheating on her behind the scenes, or you're addicted to porn, or you're drinking too much. Like, get real, get honest about your life. And then relational. Do you have an ability to create connection and contact with the people in your life, nature, like the actual earth, this thing that we live on, the primal side of living, your own power, your desire, your sexuality, your masculinity? Like, are you in relationship with God? Are you in relationship with any of that? Are you open to connection? Right? Like, these are some of the pillars or some of the ideas that I put in as structure around uncivilized. Are you primal? Like, if you can see behind me, there's a gorilla and a Buddha. Like, do you have access to both sides of that beingness as a man? When I first started this, Wes, this was, 8 years ago, I would get guys on the phone and I like put them in two categories. Like, you're all divine, emotional intelligence, spiritual, lovely, and soft as fuck. You need to be over here in the prime. You need to like go deadlift, go live in the woods, do more shit that's like hard. Go get beat up a couple times in a jujitsu gym. Go learn to surf. Go do that. Or guys that were all over there. Like, oh man, I'm in the gym 5 days a week. I make a ton of money. I'm having all this great sex, but like my wife's gonna leave me because she says she can't feel me. I'm like, cool. Talk to me about like your emotions. Can you feel yourself? Do you have emotions? And oh, you have all this trauma that you haven't worked through. Holy shit. That's why you're so successful. Okay, let's bring you over here and balance you out. So I know that's a long answer to a short question, But it really is like, are you in touch with your heart and soul as a man? Do you fully, like, first and foremost, I orient myself in this world as a man, not as a human, as a man. Now, people can be somewhere else on the spectrum of that, but I personally say as a man. That's how I navigate the world. That, to me, just the awareness of that as a man, there's a path for me. Masculinity has a path. Uncivilized has a path. I'm walking that path. That, man, that just makes for everybody that I've shared it with who really embrace it, makes for an extraordinary life. Makes for an extraordinary life. But it makes for a very different life. I'm not interested in surface level conversations. I don't drink alcohol. I'm not interested in fucking sitcoms on the television. I think our political system's a joke. I think most of the structures that we can look at in this, quote, what I would say civilized world are actual corruption. They're useless, right? They have no merit. And I know I go from the church to the education system to politics to big food to big pharma. Like, this is not working, folks. It's not working. And America is the most civilized land in the world. How are we doing?
Right.
Men, if we're the patriarchy and we lead that civilization, cool. Let's peel back the layers and look at our statistics. They ain't good, man. It's like, oh, they're not good. We're not healthy. We're not well. We're not satisfied. We're not thriving. We're not exuberant. We're not all of these things that shit, the top of the food chain in the most civilized place in the world, quote, should be. We've been overly civilized, right? Is that all clear? Is that, maybe I can help you too with this story of when this all came about. I was living in Brooklyn with my buddy Adam Cobb. And I had thrown my first men's event. I wasn't even doing this for work. I was like, I just want to get a bunch of guys together. And I had one dude show up to this meeting, and I was like, okay, let's jam. And he was actually a cop who'd followed me since my CrossFit days. And he literally, after like an hour of me doing what I just did with you, just like rant on masculinity, he was like, whoa, slow down, man. I actually just came here to meet you. And I've got a question of like, how do I lose 25 pounds? And I was like, shit.
You could have
Okay.
told me that an hour ago.
Yeah. I was like, awesome. I could have emailed this to you. And but it's beautiful. He changed my life forever because he told me his biggest struggle was that he couldn't not go to McDonald's. He loved their breakfast burrito. And I was like, are you kidding me? Just don't go to McDonald's. He's like, I can't not go to McDonald's. And I said he was a cop. So I was like, what is it on your beat? Like, do you have to check in there? He's like, no, they have the best coffee. And I was like, okay, so if I buy you a French press, will it solve your problems? Right? Like, that's a civilized way of being. Now, I go upstairs, I tell Adam that the meeting was kind of a joke and fuck, this dude just wanted to lose weight and yada yada, and you can't not go to McDonald's. And then Adam and I spent the evening talking about real shit. Like stuff that had happened to him when his dad left, stuff that had happened with ex-girlfriends in high school, like real stuff. Like we had a very, very open, intimate conversation. The next morning, get up. He had built a gym in the basement of this building. We go to work out. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. And before we walk out the door, he says, hey man, when was the last time you had McDonald's? And I go, I don't eat that shit. It's civilian food. And he actually pulled his phone out and he starts filming me. And he goes, what do you mean civilian food? And I said, Adam, take a look at how we live. There's no television in this apartment. There's no alcohol in this apartment. There's no drugs in this apartment. It's 5 a.m. Neither of us have to get up for work. We're about to go get absolutely savage in a weight room. And last night we spent our evening talking about things that most men don't talk about. This is not how the civilized world lives. And if it is, I don't want to be a part of it. I can see that there's a machine that if I get plugged into that machine, if I eat what civilization tells me, if I think what they tell me, if I'm entertained by how they tell me, if I move my body in the way or lack thereof, if I work in the way that it's designed, and like if you don't believe me, go walk through an airport, go walk through Vegas. It will kick me out at the end of that experience. At the end of my life, I will be divorced more than once. I will be addicted to multiple substances. I will be overweight and have multiple medications. I will be uninspired and I will not be able to feel my heart or my soul. Went downstairs, and the word just would not leave my head, Wes, of uncivilized. I came back upstairs that afternoon, posted about it on social media, and here we are 10 years later, 8 years later, with 50 teams all over the world, an international brand, 3 books, a nonprofit. The idea was ripe, right? Mostly it's just like, don't just question your fucking life. Is this real food? Are things real? I think especially with social media, with AI, with tech, we're just getting so far away from what's real connection, real nutrient, real relationship, real intimacy, real depth. That's uncivilized to me.
It provides a helpful framework for how a man is to live. Recently reading The Trial of Socrates, and I was struck by men of that day questioning everything, but not in an existential way we do today that sends us into chaos. A thoughtful way that actually grounds us more in knowing how to live, questions it in a way that can trust the question to lead you to an answer.
Right.
It seems like for you, when that revelation and life calling really like dropped into such a simple moment. I mean, who would have thought, right? It all started with McDonald's.
Yeah.
And that yet in that there was a new way of seeing the world.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think it has to start with the question. I think many of us are scared to ask the question because we don't want to know what's on the other side. We don't want to
Right.
face the honest truth of where we're at and what we believe in their current life status. But I'm
Right.
wondering, let's say someone starts to question, they listen to this,
Yeah.
they're like, all right, Traver, I'm down. I'm going to start questioning shit. How do they not stay in that holding pattern of analysis by paralysis? What ways can they start continuing to question, but in a way that feels like it's progressing them and moving them towards something? Because you named all these things that you almost have to start with seeing everything wrong or that could get better in your life. Okay, I'm currently eating this shit and it's not good
Yeah.
for me. Least I can do is stop.
Right.
Who knows what I'm going to start doing in the affirmative, but let me at least take inventory of all the ways that are making my life worse,
Yeah.
putting those in check, stopping those. But then I'm wondering, after that happens, what does it look like? And what structures did you find that were helpful in you to building that uncivilized life?
I mean, there's some basics that we've heard about and are so trite and almost over talked about that if I mention them, a lot of people will just skip them. But there's a great book written by Dallas Hartwig called It Starts with Food. Most people's journey to consciousness, it either starts with a huge loss like mine did, or it starts with questioning just the very basic, is what I'm putting in my mouth actually food? So if you want to look at the civilized world in a nutshell, go walk around a supermarket and go, wait a minute, this isn't food. It's edible, but it's not food. And then go, wait a minute, why is this being marketed to children? How come the cereal aisle is like at 3 foot height with the sugar cereals? Okay, cool. Now I get that there's a game here. Now I get that there's people and corporations and ideas and energy that's bigger than I am. So what can I control right now? I can eat real food, right? Michael Pollan, I think, said like eat real food, mostly vegetables, not too much, or something like that. And I know there's carnivore and shit like that. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy's talking about food. Start with food. Literally start with food. And then what's number two? Probably your biggest thing. There's a war for your attention right now. I know I'm a bit of an extremist. I'm about to go lock myself in a pitch black room for 7 weeks. Can you meditate for 5 minutes? Can you meditate for 5 fucking minutes? 5. Out of how many minutes are in a day? I'm not a mathematician. There's a lot of minutes. Can you be present in those 5 minutes for more than 20% of it? When you consciously try to be present, like where is your attention going? Right? Are you healthy? Are you moving your body? I got in so much shit years ago, Wes. There's the book, The King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Great book. Great book. Great. And I'm a huge archetype dork. And I made this post and I was like, do you know what killed the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover? Heart disease. And people were like, how can you shit on the spiritual community? I was like, I'm not shitting on the spiritual community. If we really want to help men, let's stop dying of shit that we don't need to die from. So,
Right.
gentlemen, like, go get healthy, go to the doctor. Like you said, like, I don't want to just stop doing things. Here's your goal. What do you want out of your life? What are you building? It's the first chapter of my book. What are you building? Do you have any design of what you're working towards? Do you have any goal? Do you have any sense of purpose? When that gets navigated and go, yeah, I think I want to build X, then what you're eliminating are all of the blocks between you and X. Right? And we can say, even if you want to go a little bit deeper, fellas, not what are you building, but like, what do you long for? Why are you here? I used a word earlier, like, what is your dharma? What is this unique gift that you have to give to the world? It may be that you're a kick-ass accountant and you help people with their fucking taxes and you help people do numbers, and that's beautiful. And that's how your mind works and you feel alive when you're doing it. So I don't want people to think, oh, I just need to be a surfer in Costa Rica writing books and living kind of a wild life. It can be more, quote, conventional. But what do you long for as man? If you're a man listening to this, if you're a woman listening to it, as a woman, right? When I ask guys, I want you to answer this question. What do you want? What do you need? And what do you long for? As a man, it usually scrambles their brains, Wes, because they go like, well, food, shelter, love, connection, like beautiful. Those are human things. What do you want as a man out of your life? What do you need as a man out of your life? What do you long for as a man? That will take some uncombobulating to get you to start orienting yourself towards these questions as a man. Now, what's in the way? Is it your health? Is it your addictions? Okay, you got to go to a doctor. You got to go to a personal trainer. You got to start eating better. It's your addictions. Go talk to Wes. Go hire a therapist. Go do somatic work. Go do plant medicine if that's your thing. Go get in a men's circle. Go work with a professional. Okay, there's a knowledge gap there. I don't know how to build the thing that I want to build. Amazing. Neither did I. Hire people, read books, go on YouTube, make it your obsession. You start to get obsessed about something in a positive way. And brother, I'll tell you, a lot of bad habits fall to the wayside and a lot of good habits come in, and some shadow has to get dealt with, right? Some insecurity may have to get dealt with. Some all of a sudden your life becomes very real. It becomes very raw. It becomes relational because you figure out like, oh shit, I can't do this on my own. Now you're living a civilized existence. Now you're living in a very different framework, a very different paradigm than you were when you're just kind of like, dirty, I don't know. I'm going to get a 3.5% raise at this job I hate next year, but what do you know? I have a 401k and the kids seem happy. That to me is like, it's soulless. It's not a life I want to live, and it's not a life I want men to live, because we are passionate people. We are purpose-driven people. Like you give a group of guys a task and they come alive. You give, like, I was so depressed. I did not know what to do with myself years and years and years ago. And my buddy said, like, well, why don't you write 65 individual letters to you who woke up and the day you found out your wife was leaving? 8 weeks later, I had 90 individual letters that I'd written, and it's now called a book called Today I Rise. And those 2 months, I went from like flat back on a couch, not knowing what to do with myself, hating my life, crying, eating Chinese food, and woe is me, to like up at 6 a.m. in the gym, out by 7:30, at the computer by 8, eating better, talking to people, like boom, 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 boom. I had something to focus on, something that was bigger than me, but still had like my heart involved in it. So guys, it can start with your body. If you don't know what to change, start asking yourself better questions. Is this a life I want to live? And is what I'm about to put in my mouth actually food? Or is it some processed poison that's been labeled as food? And I'm going to be one of those dudes who's going to die from heart disease, even though I listen to this podcast.
It reminds me of a quote from Ram Dass: if you want to be enlightened, don't go to an island and meditate, just have a family with kids. It's that daily grind. I think what you're speaking to is key, which is have a mission, have a meaning, have a life worth living, and go after it. And I appreciate those framings. That was helpful. Let's say a guy has this awakening, he listens, he puts down the McDonald's and then he replaces it with Whole Foods, and he's like, start going after it. So let's say he starts becoming self-aware, he's listening to podcasts, he's bettering himself, but yet he quickly finds, okay, I have these everyday responsibilities. My wife's asking for this, my kids are asking for this, I have bills to pay. And understandably, men are expected to do more. But one thing we know statistically is that even though men are expected to do more, the support has not matched the level of responsibility that is increased. So I'm wondering, there's a lot of guys out there that I think are good guys that really want to make a difference and are starting this journey of, self-development. How can they navigate that inner work along with the outer demands? Your life of how you go to Costa Rica to express your life in one way and Boulder in another. How would you suggest, if a guy is living in one place, how to embody both of those things in a way that feels sustainable?
I do a lot of the things I do in Costa Rica here. I still get up early. I still go to the gym and work out hard. I still meditate. I still leave myself voice notes. I'm still in 2 separate men's groups. So to answer your question, number one is I have responsibilities. I have bills to pay. I have a team. I have employees. I have a whole business to run that I don't just like show up once a month after having a tab of acid and, like share a big vision and then wander off into the desert again. Like I write emails. I do that stuff. But when I am connected to my heart and soul, how I do those things is very different than if I'm disconnected from my heart and soul. So, dude, I still do dishes, right? Like I walk my dog. I have responsibilities. But how I do those things, again, is different because they're by choice. Like and if it's not by choice, the activity, like I just had to pay the IRS, that's kind of by choice. But how I pay them is by choice. Do I show up and go, fuck this, fuck the IRS, I'm going to ruin my whole day? Or go, beautiful. Thanks for paying for my roads, fellas. Thanks for the military. Thanks for the police. Thanks for all that stuff. Let's go. Now what am I going to do? So I'll give you guys some tactical stuff. Getting around other men who are living the way that you want to live is probably the biggest shifter or changer or sustainer of personal development work. Get around like-minded men, period. I don't care if it's my group or someone else's group. Get around like-minded men who are also doing the work, who are also balancing the same things you're balancing: being a dad, being a husband, being a lover, being a son, being a CEO, being a boss, being an employee. Those are all things that you do. Uncivilized is how you be, right? It's connection to something deeper. It's connection to nature. It's connection to your children. It's connection to your partner. It's connection, period. It's connection to, again, I'll keep saying this, Wes, connection to your heart, connection to your soul, connection to your mind, connecting to God, if that's how you orient. I don't think any of us, I used to work for billionaires, like literally billionaires. I was a bodyguard for billionaires. They still had shit to do that they didn't want to do, right? Yeah, they were doing it from like $250 million yachts, but eventually they still had stuff they had to do. And even more interesting, I remember a story of one of the yacht captains telling me that he had some Saudi prince had been on one of the yachts, and the guy would literally have his staff like brush his teeth like he was a dog. And the man at like late 30s, early 40s could barely walk because he was so fragile and so frail. And that is not the goal. Right? Like I don't want my life to not have the mundane. I don't love doing dishes. It's not like that's one thing I think I just lied. I would get rid of dishes and laundry. But the other parts of my life, like I still want to live a full human 3D on the ground existence. Right? I don't like fights with my girlfriend, but I realize that they're valuable. I don't like aging, but I realize that there's a wisdom in it, you know? So it's not so much what do you do, it's how do you do it. And do you recognize, guys, I just want to say this one last time, that you can do something and have no presence in it. And whatever it is that you do, you will feel like shit. I don't even care. Like, let's take sex. If you're not there for sex, it's not that fun. It's not as fun. Now, if you're fully present as you do your dishes, as you mow the lawn, as you play with your kids, as you help your partner, that is pleasurable. Like life actually, it's satisfying on a different level, let's say. Let's use words that men really orient towards. So that's how I view it, man.
Oh, that's so good. It reminds me of one of my favorite authors, Jim Finley, says we often experience depth deprivation, that we're skimming over the surface of our lives. And he gets it from this quote from this monk, Thomas Merton. He says it's quite possible we get to the end of our lives and we just meet for the first time the person we were always meant to be.
How many social media things do you scroll through in a day? Probably thousands. And what did we used to do? Again, I'm going to go back to the 80s. As a kid, I could spend 3 days in bed reading a book, one book. And now, and I'm guilty of it too, guys. I probably looked at 500 social media posts today skimming, as quote enlightened as I think I may be, but none of it had depth. So to answer your question even further, Wes, like, gentlemen, find ways where you can acquire and experience depth. And one of the best ways I know for that is in a men's group.
That's helpful, man. I think the phone, the food, the video games, the substances, all those attachments. We started this whole convo talking about the darkness and silence, how that really is a detox and a detaching from things until your life is what it is and you see it as enough. There doesn't need to be any adding to it or enhancing it, because what you are is enough, which is that deeper message. Most of us men don't think that they're worthy as they are. They don't need to fix anything. It's like mental Botox we try to do to ourselves, you know, well, how do I add and how do I change and shave this off and make this look better? I'm curious, what is one practice or principle you want to leave men with to consider?
Connection. Like, can you actually, with other men in your life, do this, guys? Next time you have a conversation with a buddy, ask, how are you doing? Really, how are you doing? And then shut your mouth and if he goes, oh, I'm fine, be like, how else are you besides fine? Like, learn to actually create a tiny little bit of depth with everybody you're around and make that the new bar. Like, that's the new par. You're not willing to be in relationship with anyone who's not willing to go a little bit below the surface with you. I think that's an extraordinary practice to have. And be open. Like, see if you can't. This is going to be a little bit meta and esoteric. Can you feel the world around you? Can you feel when your partner's upset? Can you feel when your kids are cranky or happy? Can you feel yourself? When you wake up, do you go, how am I doing today? Or is it instantly coffee, cigarette, car, work, donut, etc.? I would love for all men to learn how to feel the world. I think everything in the world would change. And guys, I'm going to be a dick. Take one habit that you know you need to be not doing and replace it with something that would orient you more towards getting that thing that you're longing for. So whether that's weed, whether that's alcohol, whether that's video games, whether that's porn, there's something that you're using to supplement not getting that need met that's actually keeping you from getting that need met. And you change that, and I tell you, it's like a domino effect. It's a cascade. Your life will become radically more awesome.
Wise words. Thank you. People will be keen to hear this. And I'm curious, before we part, where can people find you? What do they most need to know about you?
Please, guys, get a hold of my book, Man Uncivilized. It's on Audible. It's on Amazon. You can go to manuncivilized.com and see all of my offerings. I have a podcast called the Uncivilized Podcast, and I have a new book coming out called 28 Days in Darkness. It's out in August when I get out of the dark. And I'm on Instagram at Traver Boehm, TraverBoehm. But if you Google anything uncivilized, I should come up. So I'd love to talk to anybody who listens to this and wants to just shoot me a message. I love hearing from folks in podcast interviews.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll make sure to put all that in the show notes. Brother, it's been such a gift to hear your story and your journey and what you're up to, and holding you in our hearts as you enter into the darkness, and excited to hear what comes out on the other side.
Thanks, Wes. I appreciate you, brother.
All right.